Also, people talk about Rob Ford's awful policies and actions a ton. He was actually ordered to leave office because of corruption and didn't. The crack tape is just our latest chance to stomp this cockroach out. And I imagine, when you got a right winger, there's a healthy dose of hypocrisy involved in something like that. Because, and here's why, and this is the same thing with Rush Limbaugh. For years, Rush Limbaugh would go on and on talking about how people should not be weak and they should be punished by society for any type of moral or physical weakness. It is theirs to suffer through. We should not have any sympathy for these people. They are morally less than. He would say it about weight when he would lose weight, and then he would be quiet about it when he would gain his weight back. He would say it about cigarette smokers when he would talk about his formerly nicotine-stained hands. But he doesn't do that anymore because he's back on the cigars. The idea that people could have weaknesses and that that's just simply part of the human condition has to be written out of what a right-winger's narrative is. Because if you accept the fact that some people, for whatever reason, simply have problems that they are unable to overcome without help, then you start getting into this very sticky and ambiguous world where, hey, maybe it's not morally repugnant. Forget about the practical value of it, of helping people who don't have health insurance, of helping people who have fallen into poverty, of helping people who can't find a job, of helping people who need more help in terms of education, of helping people who have an addiction. All that goes out the window if you allow yourself to say there's no moral implications to someone being an alcoholic or being a drug addict or having made a wrong financial decision or of having a medical bankruptcy or of having lost their job because they pursued in an industry that ends up being dried off because of forces that are beyond their control. You cannot allow that to happen. And so the right-wing ideology, it's fundamentally hypocritical for you to have any human weaknesses at that point. Because once you admit that I have a human weakness that is beyond my capacity as a human, then you have to admit that for other people. And then you have to say it's not morally wrong to help them. You could still make a pragmatic argument, but that's much harder to sell. Because the reality is, societies function better if those who need help get help. So having an addiction, having any type of manifest human frailty is fundamentally contrary to the right-wing narrative. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps was first a phrase coined to be ironic, because it's impossible to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It is literally impossible. The phrase was said and quoted and coined first to be ironic. People need help to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. There's no other physical way of doing it. That's why when you see a right-winger who is addicted to something, it necessarily exposes them as a hypocrite. And then the question is just whether or not they have the means to get outside help. But their argument that being addicted or having a human frailty or having bad luck is somehow a sign of your lack of morality your lack of moral worth falls apart.